Welcome back to From a Southside Point of View, our Star Wars show. I'm here with Josh Nelson. We're going to talk some Book of Boba Fett today. Josh, thanks for joining us from over there at Sox Machine. Good to see you. And first off, Happy New Year. Uh, and then
Yeah.
and then and then second, how'd you feel about this first episode?
Well, thanks for having me on again. It's almost been a calendar year since we were recapping season 2 of The Mandalorian. And as far as the first episode of the Book of Boba Fett, I am pleasantly surprised. I was one that was a bit skeptic on the direction of this show and just how much more source material there really is with Boba Fett. Obviously, in Star Wars Legends, there's a lot more, but we've been told consistently that Legends is not canon.
Mhm.
Well, it appears that Jon Favreau has other plans in making Legends canon. And if you can't have the source material become canon, he's just going to reduplicate it in the visual medium through the Disney Plus shows. I really enjoyed this first episode. I thought it was terrific, and it really has me looking forward to next week with episode 2 and to learn more about the Star Wars underground.
Yeah, man. And you touched on one thing there, which is the bringing legends into canon. And I think they're doing a good job of going, let's think about what are the best parts of legends. What do
Mhm.
people love? And let's incorporate this in a new way, right? I mean, like a good example is Thrawn. Thrawn has been reintroduced into books, comics, the cartoons in a fantastic way. Um, it's a very different use of him. Like it's a different storyline for him, but very much the same character. And so I think, if we're going to expand on Boba Fett, I think there's tons of good Legends material. I think there's, good Patton Oswalt material to go off of, which I love that, by the way. I also now am expecting Thanos and Wolverine to show up in this show. But we'll see how that goes. uh, I I did want to get into a couple things with you, Josh. And the first is the way that this first episode was laid out.
Mhm.
They hit a lot of flashbacks and kind of, to the Patton Oswalt point, they show the glove come out. He gets out of the Sarlacc, which I thought they did really well. I really enjoyed that. Um, but my question is more along the lines of, are we going to continue to see this kind of flashback story? And is it going to run almost like a Godfather 2 style, current day, him being a Don, and then this kind of backstory of what happened to him between Jedi and him getting that armor back from Din?
I think we have to, right? I think the show has to. If this is the Book of Boba Fett, I am one led to believe that every time he's going to the healing pit and he's having these dreams, Chorizy, that we're gonna see as far as all of the backstories filling in the gaps because you're right. What happens after the Sarlacc pit? Oh my gosh, he survived. Okay, what's next? The next time we see Boba Fett, he's a silhouette after the first episode of Mandalorian season 2. And we're all led to believe, oh, who is that? And we're playing the guessing game until Boba Fett comes back demanding his armor. And those were excellent episodes. And of course, Robert Rodriguez directed an episode in season 2 of The Mandalorian, and he directs this episode in Boba Fett. Now, are they going to consistently use the healing pod as far as the personal swimming pool, or as from the 108, their personal hot tub?
I love
Uh,
that thing, by the way. I want one of those.
yeah, no kidding, right? Every time he goes in there, is that the vehicle that we're going to get these fill in the gap types of moments and stories? I have questions about what we have seen so far, especially with the Tusken Raiders
Hmm.
and what that means moving forward for Boba Fett. But I do think we're going to have this structure. And we have seen it in other shows be very successful. I referenced the show Lost. Lost did a really good job with these flash forwards or going back into a particular person's past story before they got into the island. We could have a similar show in the Book of Boba Fett. You're in the present, then he's got to go in the healing pool. He has these dreams, and we're flashing back to previous stories of Boba Fett.
I like that idea. I think that's a good way of doing it. I initially thought when I figured they have to tell at least that first story, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
he has to get out of the Sarlacc pit. We need to know how that happened. I initially thought he's going to tell stories, right? Like he's going to tell stories. But like the more I'm getting from this character is he's not an orator in any sense, right? He's not going to be the guy telling this like long story about what happened to him. It's
Right.
going to happen in some fashion like this. The When we're talking about that side of the story, though, the thing that came to mind immediately for me when I was watching this episode, and I'll pull up a picture here because these could have just been from the show,
Mm-hmm.
actually. But I mean,
Yeah.
there's straight out of the good, the bad, and the ugly, comparisons here. Like, I mean, like just a lot of the shots, and even like Tuco washing his feet with the water instead of giving him some. Another scene I thought of, which is not Blondie, but Tuco needs to get the chain off of. He's chained to another prisoner. He uses a train. Boba Fett uses a very different method. But I like that vibe. I like the man with no name vibe for Boba Fett because he's not a good guy. He's technically going to be the hero of the story, you'd think, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just like Clint Eastwood was. Boba Fett being a space Clint Eastwood is fantastic to me. I think it's a good direction because he's not a guy that you're like, this is a good guy. You're like, this is kind of a bad guy, but I'm rooting for him. And if they can build something like that in this backstory, I think that would be really, really interesting. And I think it could really sell the idea of now he's wants to lead people. Now he
Mm-hmm.
wants to act in a different way in terms of how the crime syndicate is used and things like that. So I really like the idea of going that route with him. So I all the imagery to me I loved. I mean, I would man, Josh, I will never be thirsty enough to drink whatever came out of that worm. Like it's I mean, I saw that and I was like, no, I'd die. I'd die.
I'm glad you referenced the good, the bad, and the ugly because when you shared that image with me, it definitely sparked as far as what led to Robert Rodriguez and the creative influences in many of these shots. And the good, the bad, and the ugly is, of course, one of the great Hollywood classics. And the cinematography in that movie is phenomenal, especially with what they had on hand back then. And to do this homage in the first episode of Boba Fett, I just thought was spectacular, and that was a terrific choice by Robert Rodriguez.
I and one thing before we get I want to go to the other side of the story, but the one of the complaints that I've heard a lot is, these scenes in the sand, they just took so long. They're just so like they drag on. And you got to think about who is directing this, right? Robert Rodriguez is not only a great action director, but he is also a horror director. And when you have a guy like that, he knows how to build dread and despair when you're watching something.
Mm-hmm.
So the amount of silence, the amount of walking, and the amount of him almost collapsing and then finally collapsing is just, something that you would see in a horror movie where somebody is in a horrible position, right? And even if you watch some of the fighting scenes later in the show too, he's always trying to compact it and make it claustrophobic so that it's like you really feel that sense of like, what am I going to do here? Uh,
And the other thing to touch on, and for that criticism, rewatch A New Hope. folks, because as soon as C3PO and R2D2 land in Tatooine, you are spending minutes watching two droids in the middle of this vast desert. And think as far as the landscape and all the movies that feature a desert in them, they all follow this similar path in which it feels like it just takes a really long time because it takes a really long time. It's a desert. There's no vegetation. There's no water. It's a terrible place to be in. And I think everyone that shoots desert scenes, and we just saw Dune, that was a very popular
Yeah.
movie. When you have these types of scenes, they're supposed to feel like they're dragging on because time, when you're in a desert, feels like it's being dragged on.
Even Mel Brooks did it in Spaceballs. All right, people. So calm down. So let's get to the other half of the story, because I mean I think this is where we're going to see probably more surprising things, more twists and whatnot, is the present day, or Boba Fett's present day, we should say.
Yeah.
It's kind of Godfather-ish, but not the original Godfather. More part two, where Michael is kind of figuring out his way, trying to, now he's the Don. Now what does he do? Right. And I think the the Twi'lek that comes for the mayor is like the hilarious version of Michael Corleone meeting with the senator at the beginning of Godfather 2, where he tells him, "My offer to you is nothing." Uh, that's the kind of thing that I'm seeing here. Josh, what do you think about kind of like the second, let's call it a second movie within this series?
So in that opening scene, when he gets out of the pod
Hmm.
and he is greeted by his visitors, I a couple lines that I love. One, we need a protocol droid. I guess it's just funny to have this alien speak in this language. You're getting no subtitles whatsoever, and Boba Fett looks at Fennec and like, "Did you understand anything that they said?" I just feel like, gosh, that'd be like such real life if Star Wars was real life, and if you had an alien right now join us speaking in a language that we did not understand, we'd feel the same way. Be like, well, they gave us credit, so they must be our friend. And then the line, "May you never leave Mos Espa." That was such a great line in the sense of Boba Fett's like, even when they compliment you, it sounds like a threat. I just right away, it's like, all right, we are setting the theme here of the Star Wars underground, and the mayor's, is it Majodomo?
Yeah, I'm not going to pronounce that right, so I'm just going to let you mess it up.
Yeah, so the actor's from Veep, if I remember
He's
correctly.
he's a big time improv dude. You,
Okay.
I bet a lot of people here who are like my age saw him at Second City back in the day.
Oh,
And so,
okay.
and he was a big improv actor in LA too. But he is amazing in that scene.
Yeah, yeah. It's just like, oh, I could understand the misunderstanding. Uh and that was so great. And it really sets up as far as the question that when there isn't anything coming from the mayor, this character we have yet to be introduced. And the expectation is that Boba Fett is supposed to give something to the mayor and not
Yeah.
vice versa. All right, we have already created conflict. And this is stage one of the conflict. And I think we'll talk about stage two, what happens outside of the sanctuary. And I think it reminds me a little bit of Lord of the Rings in the extended edition of Return of the King, when you have that really gross, gruesome magistrate that comes outside of Mordor to greet Aragorn. And you always have these conversations before type of conflict in a lot of war movies, especially medieval times, for these types of films that they greet each other. And I feel like this was the greeting scene, and there's going to be a lot more conflict between Boba Fett and whoever this mayor is.
I'm interested to see that. And we'll talk about it a little bit in a little while, because it's not clear who the bad guy is in this story, or not. I mean, like, they're all bad guys, but who's kind of like the major villain here? So I'm
Yeah, we don't
interested
know
to
yet.
see that. That's gonna, we'll talk about that in a little bit. Um, but yeah, I mean, like in general, I think the way that they've set this up, and there was a good comment earlier. I'll pull it back up, which is that it's really just a small group of people right
Yeah.
now for Boba Fett, right? Or people and aliens. Um, there's also going to be some kind of he's got to build up a crew, right? Like so there's
Yeah.
that alongside. There's a lot of different things that have to happen in like 6 more episodes. So I'm interested to see how they do this and how they jam it in, especially if there's going to be a kind of a subplot of this is what happened in between.
How did you feel about Fennec in this episode?
I mean, she's amazing. She's badass. Like I mean, I think it's it's got to me a vibe of Chewbacca to Han, where there's a kind of a life debt there, because it doesn't make sense any other way. All right. I mean, like you would be worried about Fennec, um,
Oh yeah.
of any other like, and Fennec probably would have just killed Boba by now because and we'll get into this right now. Boba is unfit. He does not see, he does not seem well.
Right.
What did you think about Fennec?
Well, we all know that Fennec is a great assassin. And for those that watched the second season of The Bad Batch, which if you haven't, I highly recommend it because Fennec gets in this phenomenal duel. Just one, I think that is that is that outrageous to say a top 10 duel for Fennec? I don't want to give away as far as that spoiler for those that are watching right now that haven't seen the second season of Bad Batch. I highly recommend it.
It's
But Fennec
it,
has a fantastic duel in that season.
yeah, I don't think it's outrageous to say top 10 because, we
We
there's
rarely
probably
get bounty hunter versus bounty hunter
yeah,
duels.
I mean like it's a non-Jedi battle in Star Wars that is fantastic. So I think that immediately kind of pushes it up.
So we know that Fennec is a great assassin and really good at parkour. Uh, but she's also a really good advisor because everything that she's saying to Boba Fett when she's speaking freely, I think she's right. I know that Boba Fett wants to rule through respect, but fear is great in a pinch. And right now, this duo is in a pinch because Boba Fett, after visiting the sanctuary, understands that, well, Jabba had many vessels throughout Mos Espa, and it's going to take us days just to visit everyone and to be able to continue this empire. It's going to be really difficult work. And Fennec,
Yeah.
recommends that she can do it much faster if she does it alone. But it's just one person. She can clearly take care of herself. But you're right, Chorizy, that in upcoming episodes, we're gonna have to see maybe Fennec as the recruiter. And Fennec is
Yeah.
going to be doing a lot of the work. And one recurring theme when it comes to Star Wars Underground is that your Padawan or your as far as the one that you serve as the master, because for the Sith, I forgot what that term is. Like for Darth Vader, what is the technical term for the Sith to the Emperor?
I think it's still master. I think
Well,
it's
yeah, he's the Emperor's the master, but like
yeah.
it's in
It,
Jedi, it's Padawan. I forgot what the term is for the
oh.
Sith.
Oh yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
they're the ones that are in lower command. If they continue to do all the work, one thing I'm wondering is over time, if they're the one that's making this happen, when does it click for Fennec to say, you know what, Bubba, you're too weak for this. I got it. Or is the relationship between Fennec and Bubba, because the saying goes, there's no honor amongst thieves, that there is honor. And maybe that's what makes Fennec different than most assassins in this galaxy.
Yeah, I mean it very well could be. I mean like again, we'd have to spoil some Bad Batch stuff, but like I don't think that Fennec is just an assassin. I think there's a little more to that character. So I think it's reasonable to think that especially, I think everyone who's watch the Mandalorian, so you know that she'd be dead if it weren't for Boba Fett.
Right.
So I mean, like, there's, I don't know. I
She has
think
a life debt. But if
I
he's
think she's,
dead,
yeah. If he's dead, then I mean, like, but at her hands, I mean, like, so I mean, like, so I don't know. I think she, I don't know that she even wants to lead. That's the other thing. Like, I think, you know, I'm surprised that Boba Fett wants to lead. So I think that there's something that we're going to find out in the desert that leads us to that conclusion. But
by the way, in the comments section, yes, you guys are right. It is apprentice. Darth Vader is the apprentice to Emperor Palpatine. So in the
oh
Sith,
yes,
it's apprentice. In
it's,
Jedi, it's Padawan.
I think it's apprentice in both. Um,
Oh.
but
Hmm.
but the Padawans are they're younglings basically. Which, by the way, we're gonna get to that kid later. It kid's full of BS. That kid. Um, but so we were talking about this, but like, and let's just dig into it. Boba Fett's health seems
Yeah.
to be on the decline, and the way I'm thinking about it is he is a partially digested 40-year-old clone, so he's basically in the same shape as me, which hopefully there's not a lot of stairs in Tatooine. But I don't know. So like, I think to your point you were just making, like, Fennec is going to have to do a lot of the heavy lifting here, and I think it's going to get into the theme of, you know, you are, if you're going to be the crime boss,
Mm-hmm.
like, you can't be in on the groundwork.
Right.
You can't be street level. Like, you have to, I think a lot of us have encountered this in our jobs in our lifetime, is like, you need to learn how to delegate. You can't just do everything yourself, right? And he's going to have to learn that. He's going to have to trust a lot of people, which I'm guessing when you're a bounty hunter, you don't. I mean, I would
Yeah.
assume you don't. You'd be dead pretty fast,
Yeah.
judging by, the limited amount we've seen bounty hunters in here. Um, and so I mean, I think, like, he's if he's going to have to spend as much time in the back to tank as he has so far, and if he's going to, I mean, like, and let's think about it, like, he was partially eaten away in the Sarlacc, like, that stormtrooper, I don't know where that stormtrooper came from, but regardless, was pretty melty when he got to it. So, like, it
Oh
that's
yeah.
definitely eating away at your body. So, like, there's definitely problems there. And then he just baked in the sun for who knows how long.
Right. Right. Yeah. How did this stormtrooper get in there?
So there's no rhyme or reason to it. I mean, like, stormtroopers definitely came to Tatooine. I mean, they torched the Barus. So, like, I know that they were there at some point. Like, I like to think that maybe, like, someone was, like, with Darth Vader, and they're like, what kind of loser would come from this crap planet? And then he just threw him in the Sarlacc pit. I feel that would be entertaining to me. Maybe we'll get that at some point. Um, but yeah, I have no idea how he was there, but he's got to have been there for a long time. Like, he wasn't at Jabba's palace or Jabba's yacht or whatever he had out there.
Right.
He wasn't there. So he came from somewhere else. So he's been in there, and they say you digest in there for a long time. So, one, we don't know how long Boba was in there. So his body could have taken on some serious damage from that thing. Although he looks pretty ripped for his age. So I'm impressed. But yeah, I mean, like, I don't know. The there's mental and physical tolls from that kind of thing. And, like, I don't know, we have no frame of reference for how long a clone body lasts,
Right.
especially when it's not accelerated in age. Like, there's no one else. There's Omega, but Omega is apparently younger. So there's no frame of reference of, like, how long this clone body is going to last for him. So it's he looks rough, man. He looks like he needs that back to tank a lot. And so I'm interested to see how that plays a role in this series, if like he's kind of exceedingly worse throughout the show, or if he heals.
Hmm. Yeah, the how long does a clone body last is a great question. I I I think it has to last pretty long based on what we saw in Rebels, right?
Yeah, I mean, like but they were also accelerated in age, so they're probably actually born around the same time as Boba Fett, but they were accelerated in age, so I don't know. Like they were
Maybe
still
we don't
alive.
know the real age of Boba Fett.
We, I mean, I think, yeah. I mean, it depends on how slowly he was aging.
Yeah, I
Like,
guess
because he
that's a
looks
good
like
question.
he's a
That's a good one.
10-year-old kid in that in the in what is it, like episode 2 when he shows up,
Episode 2.
which
Yeah.
makes him like 40 or 42 or something like that
Mhm.
when we see him now. We think 42. Um, but yeah, like I don't know if that's old or young. I don't do they age in dog years, cat years, Chorizy years? I don't know.
We're gonna
So
find out,
we're gonna find like what's the thing is like it could be like they could go two very different directions here, right? Like he can be in great shape by the end of the series and just like ready to destroy a bunch of people, and that would
yeah.
be really cool. Or his body can start failing him, and then he becomes more of a sit on the throne Jabba the Hutt, and he's going to need to be more mentally fit for that kind of thing, which
Mm.
will be against kind of in Legends. In Legends, I'm pretty sure the clones go insane at like 30, like they just like lose their minds. So like, I think they'll do a little bit different version for this.
And I do like that because it brings in another aspect of this character that does force fans to take pause and remember that's right. This guy's a clone. He's not normal. So that adds into another aspect. And maybe there are other crime lords that don't want to be having to report or serve under a clone.
Agreed. I have to put this comment up. Dale puts barge party tape because Dale is the only person on Earth other than me that can connect Mr. Show to Star Wars. So I appreciate that. Um, so the next thing I wanted to get into, Josh, is something that's kind of near and dear to my heart. Max Rebo lives.
Jammin'. Did you like the remix?
Oh my God. Yeah, so not only did Max Rebo live, he put together a supergroup with Figure and Dan of the modal nodes. And Tatooine's music scene has never been as good as it is now after I thought it was destroyed on the barge. Um, this is actually it's funny, Josh. I from time to time think about Max Rebo and if he survived or not. And it's strange because so let me tell you a little Chorizy story from back in the day.
Okay.
So back when I used to work at a record label and we would put together tours and stuff, there was this club, and I will not name the club. I will tell you it is in the American South. Um, but the guy who owned and operated it was absolutely a drug dealer. And the money you would get as a as a performer there was really good. Like like you'd be surprised, like it's not like astronomical or something, but like as you're going through that portion of the country, this is definitely going to be the most you make in a night. And it was because this dude just wanted to get people into his place so that he could sell drugs to them. Right. Which is, hey, man, that's your business. And that was always my mindset. And I would always think Max Rebo had the same mindset. Guy was just trying to book his band in the highest paying gigs, and
Yeah.
then all of a sudden some Jedi blows up his whole bit, right? And so I always thought, man, that is a horrible way for Max to go. Now I know Max is alive. Max is still playing. And you know what? He did not learn his lesson. He is absolutely in a place that could get blown up once again Max, I love it. I love his commitment to not only music but to villainy.
Well, come on, it's called the Sanctuary. I mean, I'm sure Max is thinking, a place called the Sanctuary, what could go wrong?
Exactly. And hey, it looks like a nice step up. I didn't
It
see
does.
anybody getting devoured by a rancor there. Although I do want to see that happen in this show.
Well, are we going to talk about the
The-
lizard
what-
monster?
that was what I have up next. So
Yeah.
I do want to talk about that. I want to know not only like what did Boba Fett kill in the desert, but is there any significance to
Yeah.
this kill?
I was kind of hoping it was a rancor, honestly.
When you saw the claw, right?
Yeah. I'm
Like
like,
there, I was like, oh yes, Moochie is here.
yeah, that's what I was hoping for. And then it came out, and I never seen that type of creature before, with the 4 arms, and then in addition to the legs, pretty scary. Uh, that one alien had no chance in hell of surviving,
I
but a
mean,
pretty badass moment for Boba Fett to choke it to death.
Rhodians just get demolished in
Yeah,
this
they do.
universe.
They really
Uh,
do.
yeah, no, but it was a badass kill and a great callback to Jabba getting strangled. Um, I did so I've watched a few other people talk about this, and like the one name that keeps coming up is Ray Harryhausen, which I was not really familiar with. I am familiar with some of the movies, like the old Clash of the Titans, like the old Sinbad
Hmm.
movie, right? And so check this out. So this is Harryhausen working
Okay.
on one of his monsters back in the day, and I think this is actually this the bottom of this is not the same as what we saw in the show.
No.
It's a lot different. It's like it because I think that was like the Kraken, so it's got like the tail going in the back and stuff. But I like definitely that type of theme to it, right? Like it's like that's the look, and I like that. And the reason that I really was excited when I saw that creature and like the way they did it and the way it looked and everything is that if they're going to do any huts in this show, I don't want them to be like the weird CGI huts that we saw in like the prequels, right? Like I
Mm.
like having them more practical, kind of like the original kind of puppets, basically. Um, doing something like that is going to be way cooler, and I think if we could get a look like this for the huts that we're going to see for the Rancor that we better see, um, like, I'm all over it, man. That looked really good. So I'm more excited to see a a hut in this. Uh, I K-Fed's John Goodman could play a hut in this.
Hey,
That would
he's
be
lost a
fun.
lot of weight.
That's true.
Okay.
That's true. He has.
To give some credit to John Goodman, he's lost a lot of weight.
But so the weird let's call it the weird dragon thing for now, right? Like I don't have a
Sure.
name.
I don't know what it is.
It's not a
I think
dragon,
in the
right? Because
comment,
the crate dragon is way different. So this is
yeah,
just some kind of lizard beast.
in the comments we got, it looks like Machamp from Pokemon. Which,
Well, so
as someone who
what's
played Pokemon, I
the
got
one
that reference.
the one comparison that I kept seeing was the guy from Mortal Kombat with the
Yeah, there you
forearms.
go.
Um,
I don't know what that was called either, but I totally get it. Yes.
yeah, I mean, and they just redid that. So like, there's a good reference point there. Uh, Regardless, I loved it, but like, so they kill that, right? Well, so Boba Fett kills it
Yeah.
almost pretty much by himself. I mean, the kid did stab it in the foot. That was helpful.
Yes, it was.
Kid definitely comes back and says, "I killed this thing." Right?
Hmm.
Is that going to be important? Is this like is this going to be a point of contention at some point? Because I know for Tusken Raiders, like crate dragon battles are like a rite of passage. I don't know what this thing is, so I don't know if this falls into the category. Um, But is this kid lying about this going to be a problem at some point? I mean, like the chief already knows that the kid is lying, so maybe not. But it just kind of caught me as like, is this going to be something that we come back to?
I don't know if the kid's going to take full credit because I think rewatching, he does point at Boba Fett and
Mm,
in Tuscan speaks, makes a motion that they choked him to death. He obviously is going to get credit for the kill because Boba Fett is the prisoner. So the
right.
Tuscan Raider is going to get credit for it. I'm interested to see what is going to happen in episode 2 or next in these flashbacks between Boba Fett and the chieftain of the Tuscan Raiders. And this is one of the things that I'm really enjoying ever since Jon Favreau greenlit The Mandalorian and he's getting this Star Wars content. We're learning more about the Tuscan Raiders. We just, in the past, they were just these guys that made really weird noises and they were Tatooine and Obi-Wan Kenobi scares them off in A New Hope. And we don't know much more about them. But now that we have these television shows, you have the opportunity to explore more on how they operate. And I think we're going to learn more about the Tuscan Raiders, which is something that I'm really fascinated in. And maybe you are right that it is a rite of passage and the child Tuscan Raider is going to get promoted within the tribe, in large thanks to Boba Fett. But I could also see where you have this relationship now between the Tuscan Raider child, because he also looks, he or she looks fondly at Boba Fett, that Boba Fett didn't whoop him with the stick outside of the fire before Boba Fett ran out into the middle of the desert in the middle of the night. That was not a good plan.
So,
Boba Fett got his butt kicked.
Wh-
But
you know,
I
you did mention the he she there. Like we should mention that the Tuscan Raider that kicks his ass in the desert is a female character.
okay.
And it's actually played by the person who does is the stunt double for Captain Marvel.
Oh, wow. That's good to know. Yeah. So I think it may come to a point that if Boba Fett's life is in danger in future episodes, that I think the kid's going to step up and protect Boba Fett. So I think you have some type of relationship that Boba Fett will have with the Tuscan Raiders because we did see this with Din, right, in The Mandalorian,
Mhm.
his ability to communicate and negotiate with the Tuscan Raiders.
Yeah, and one crazy theory, and I don't know if it's crazy, maybe it's actually accurate, that I've seen a lot about these particular Tuscan Raiders is because they're wearing black. Um, I guess there's a comic book series where Darth Vader comes and kills a bunch of Tuscan Raiders just because I mean, like Anakin was into that,
Yep.
uh,
Yep.
and and the ones that live like become a cult to Vader. Like they worship Darth Vader as like this superior warrior. Um, and so there's some people saying like, is this the same group of them? Which would
Hmm.
be interesting. The fact that Boba has a relationship or had a relationship with Darth Vader could play in there. Uh, I don't know that they'll go down that path. I just thought it was like I love crazy theories, so this is one that I was like, "Ooh, yeah, we should at least mention it." Um, but speaking of crazy theories, let's start getting into kind of the other parts of the show that are upcoming. And Josh, who do you think is kind of the true big bad of this show? Like who's pulling the
Yeah.
strings?
So I'm glad you mentioned this because during the visits to Boba Fett to pledge their allegiance or their respect to Boba Fett, he's called a daimo. And the daimo is a Japanese term for a feudal lord. This is from the 10th century to like the 19th century. Thanks, Wikipedia. And there's a couple of things about this phrase. One, it reminds me of the Jedi episode in Mandalorian season 2. Now, that was a magistrate, and I believe the character's name is Morgan,
Yeah.
Morgan Elsbeth. She's the one that has the Beskar
Hmm.
spear that fights Ahsoka Tano. Now, that episode was heavily influenced by Japanese themes, and ultimately, we find that even though she's a magistrate and she's the feared lord of this outpost, she's got a master. And spoiler alert, that master is Grand Admiral Thrawn. Daimos were very powerful, but they also had masters, and their masters were called shoguns. So, who is the shogun if Boba Fett is the daimo? And I don't have any good angles right now, Chorizy, on who is possibly the shogun to Boba Fett's now inherited criminal organization. But clearly, there is another boss that's in charge of the territory. And I
Yeah.
wonder if that's going to be the mayor, but I don't know who the mayor is.
So I think the mayor is unimportant. Um,
Okay.
I think they're building that up. I think we're going to see the mayor. Uh, I don't know how long the mayor will be with us. Uh, um, but you put a name out there, which I think is interesting, which is Thrawn, which I think that Thrawn is possibly in some way going to be related to this show. Um, there's got to be some kind of person that at least brings these crime syndicates together to fight. I think that could be Thrawn. I think that could be a ways out. Um, but so the thing that like I keep thinking about is so like Jennifer Beals is a little suspiciously nice.
Hmm.
Like when she hands over uh, the money way too quick. Now maybe that's just what they're gonna say. This is how it all works, and that's fine. There's definitely still someone running an organization with those uh people that show up, that like that gang that shows up at that
Yeah.
little outpost that or house and like is taking the water tax from those people. And so someone who knows a lot more about Star Wars than me pointed out that the that symbol that they put on there very much looks like a Huttese character
Okay.
for K. And K is, I mean, like one of the words that starts with K is like this like family word, which is like a crime family thing. But nevertheless, the only thing I'm taking from that is that it's possible that there are still huts around. We know there's a baby hut in the Cobb Vanth area from the books, but are there other huts that are possibly still running something on this planet? And will they be a problem? Um, but what I want, what I want to happen is I want one of the bigger criminal organizations to actually be kind of behind the scenes of this. I don't want it to be Crimson Dawn. I think that that's
See,
too
that's
easy.
what I thought you were going to say.
I want it to be Black Sun.
Mm.
I want them to reintroduce the Prince Izor character and or Shizor. I forget how you say it because it's mostly just in books. Uh, but there's a legend character that would be really cool to reintroduce. Extremely powerful, extremely wealthy. In the books, has this weird thing where he has a pheromone that women cannot resist, human women, despite him not being human. Um, so but he's got a really cool backstory in Legends. I think if they are going to pull from Legends and get some of like the bigger, more powerful characters to come into this universe and really have a interesting storyline, I think this is a place where you can kind of say, this is the guy that's pulling the strings behind all of these people. The mayor's in his pocket, Jennifer Beals is in his pocket, and Boba Fett's going to have to make a decision of, am I going to try and rule here or am I going to be under this guy's thumb?
Right.
And I think an older, deteriorating clone of of Jango Fett um, is going to try and break free of that. And I think that's where you can see like a major conflict coming. And I would love it. And the character, like I said, is pretty damn cool. If look up stuff about Shadows of the Empire if you're interested in learning about this character. Uh, it's a could be something that like I mean if it happens, you will hear nerd heads popping from across the country. Like mine will blow up as well as many others. So I think it's something that I would like to see happen. I'm watching out for that and will be truly disappointed and publicly humiliated because I've brought this up now.
So one thing about Crimson Dawn, and this is where if this drum beat gets louder, especially after next week with episode 2, that people want to see Crimson Dawn. I advise against bringing back Darth Maul because, spoiler, Darth Maul does return to Tatooine in Rebels, but in that meeting, his final meeting with Obi-Wan Kenobi, he doesn't have a lot of knowledge about the place. And where we are in the timeline is before that final meeting.
No, it's after.
It's after the
It's
meeting. So
after.
Darth Maul's dead.
He should be.
He should be dead.
That's the thing is like if you
That's
bring
right.
Maul back, you're saying that like once again he's been resurrected, and this whole time he's been on Tatooine building back up Crimson Dawn, but not being noticed throughout the original trilogy. It's a like I know people want it. I know people want Crimson Dawn and Maul to somehow get inserted back. And like the dude has 9 lives. So like it's like and Filoni loves him. So it could be a case that they do it. But I mean like even if you don't, even if you just do Kira.
Yeah,
right?
that's the other one, right? Okay. You know how difficult it is in today's society, and especially for a blockbuster movie like Spider-Man, where it was rumored for more than a calendar year on the big reveal on what would be happening in that movie. There's little gossip, little rumors about Emilia Clarke returning to play that character. And I would find it, Chorizy, to be incredibly difficult for them to hide that, to hide the fact that Emilia Clarke is going to come back and be Kira. So I like your original point. I like bringing in another Star Wars legend character into canon. And I think most of the heavy players, though, in the Star Wars underground are part of Legends. It could be Hondo, though. And there's a part of me that's hoping Hondo gets involved.
Hondo has to be in this show, like just a bit part.
It's one of my favorite characters in Star Wars. It really is.
Like the two things that I keep thinking are going to happen is Hondo is just going to be at one of the places that they go. And I'm like really now with this flashback thing and the way that they did just like the real quick like okay, here's me picking up Jango Fett's head, right? That little clip back. Like I think they're going to show, and this isn't a spoiler because it never actually happened. It was only supposed to happen in Clone Wars, and there's like really bad storyboards of it that have been turned into YouTube videos. Cad Bane shoots Boba Fett in the head. That's where the dent comes from, supposedly, at least in the Filoni universe. And so I think you might see Cad Bane for just a second of that showdown with no other explanation of it. Like I could see them just inserting that into his flashbacks to give that a little bit of thing, and especially because he tells his flashback stories or he tells us about his dreams to Fennec. Could be interesting there. But so those are two characters. I definitely want Hondo. Hondo Ohnaka is like one of the funniest characters across the all the cartoons.
And I'm so glad Star Wars used Hondo in the Millennium Falcon ride. Okay, so back to Cad Bane. So my idea is, so you bring up this prince who is the ultimate crime lord.
And someone gave me his pronunciation, so I think it's Tim. You're the best. Shizor. So it is pronounced
Shizor.
Shizor.
I could see Shizor hiring Cad Bane, and we have round 2. So now we're spoiling it. We have round 2 of Fennec versus Cad Bane. Like, bring that on. So Cad Bane gets hired to kill Boba Fett, and Fennec is there to protect Boba Fett. That would be awesome.
I mean, that would really be I mean, that you could see that happening and thinking like Cad Bane is somehow the person behind it all, and then that's how you give the reveal to Shizor, is that Bane has to maybe go crawling back and tell him like he was, he failed or something like that.
Or another idea, and this is very nerdy of me. I've been playing Dungeons and
Well,
Dragons.
don't worry,
And
we're not getting into any nerd stuff here. This has been really just the coolest dudes ever talking for the
yes.
past 50 minutes.
So I like playing rogue characters in D&D, and one of my favorite things is investigating the underground, and I have a dungeon master that is allowing me to do that. And again, the whole organization, right, of thieves and assassins, I think it would be hilarious if Boba Fett and Finnick were like, we're going to need help. Do you know anyone for a particular job? And Fennec just sighing and rolling her eyes, and then they have to go hire Cad Bane. That would be amazing. Amazing. And just the conflict, because that's how it works in the underground. You don't have friends. You just have people who owe you favors. And Fennec could use that as, you owe me a favor because I let you live. And that would be a great twist too. But Cad Bane has to be in this season. I really think they got to bring Cad Bane to life.
See, I like that idea. You have much more kind of fluid ideas than I do, where like my mind is like, what if they bring back Hondo and then Ezra's just on his ship? Why not?
Because that would be super lame and so disappointing. Like, why are we having the Ahsoka show then?
Hey man, that's why I don't write these shows. I just talk about them.
Well, you did. So you wrote a blog about this. Everyone take a drink. Shout out to Beef Loaf. Omega. So I wanted to ask you, because you wrote about characters we could possibly see from the 108.com for this show. Do you foresee Omega getting involved?
I do. This is partially just me wanting this to happen and wanting me to know that she lives through the Bad Batch. But if I'm thinking about it in terms of her story, right? So let's say, the Empire falls.
Mm-hmm.
There is this remnant in the Mandalorian that is still like some kind of weird cloning thing that's going on. They're the ones after Grogu. If they're after Grogu, how are they not after Omega? And if Omega knows everything about the cloning operation, she surely knows about the existence of Boba Fett. And Boba Fett is literally her closest relative, if we're going to consider the clones relatives.
Would they be brother sister?
Yes. So they are two of the, and I don't want to. I know a bunch of people in the comments have said they haven't seen Bad Batch, but there is talk in Bad Batch that links them closer than a lot of other clones.
Because if Boba Fett has a change of heart and at the end of this season and wants an out of the criminal organization, would Omega provide that out? And Fennec definitely knows who Omega is.
Exactly. This could also bring in Cad Bane.
It could also bring in Cad Bane. Yeah, this is happening, right? Cad Bane is totally happening.
There's too many ways for Cad Bane to show up in this show, and they already got the head from the old cantina. Like they should do this. That should absolutely happen.
Yeah, and that's going to be another moment that nerds' heads are going to pop off everywhere. And for those that didn't watch Clone Wars or Rebels or Bad Batch, everyone's going to be like, "Why are you freaking out about this guy?" And it's just like, "Oh, you just watch. You just watch." Yeah, Cad Bane is awesome.
Dale, you definitely do need to watch Bad Batch. And My Sack Summer, I don't care if I'm spoiling anything for you, but you know that
I haven't seen anything since Return of the Jedi. Oh my gosh. I can't help you.
he actually hasn't seen anything, not just Star Wars stuff. He has not watched. That was the pinnacle of movies for him. He has not watched a movie since.
Yeah.
So Josh, to kind of finish this up, prediction for what, I mean, we just got into some of the stuff that we think is going to happen next, but what happens in the immediate future of this world? What are you seeing in the next episode?
So what I'm seeing is two parts. One, a conclusion to Boba Fett chilling with the Tusken Raiders and where that goes. Second is the interrogation of the, I'm just going to call it the assassin that Fennec captures, and figuring out or trying to figure out who this assassin works for. And I think that will give us direction on where we go in the greater scheme of things. Again, Boba Fett says that he doesn't torture anyone. So how are you going to get information out of this assassin? And we could get more conflict between Fennec and Boba Fett again on how to run or manage things, which I think adds more intrigue on this budding new underground organization that they're trying to launch.
I like that. I think I'm along the same lines of them learning. So I think again to the Godfather 2 reference. I think we're going to get the Michael Corleone who came in and said, "Don't worry, Kay, I'm going to have this be a legitimate organization in just a few years," to realizing I got to shoot Mo Green in the eye. I guess that's
Yeah.
still the first one, but but he's gonna have to go in and start killing some people, and the mayor's first. Like I think that the mayor gets dispatched next episode. Like I think that he comes in, they have their conversation, he brings them back the assassin, say you sent this guy after me. What's going on with this?
Yeah.
And then he gets dispatched, and then his people have a choice. You come work for Boba, or
You
Muchi
die.
shows up, and Muchi has a grand feast of
Moochie
of these
hungry.
of of these maroon wardrobed warriors with their special little shields. Um, so I think that's going to be like the present
Yeah.
day thing. I think the previous uh, part, the thing that we're going to touch on in the previous Boba story, is a continuation of these water tax guys. These guys who are this gang that's going around. I think his hatred's going to start building for them. Um, I wonder if we find out that there's Huts, or if it's actually Bib Fortuna who's guiding these guys. It's possible it's Bib, and that's why he just dispatches of him so quickly. But I think there's going to be like this hatred building for this type of criminal element, even though he's a criminal. Like I think we can't lose track of the fact that Boba Fett is a bad guy. Um, but these guys who are worse than him, right? These guys that are basically preying on innocence. Boba Fett has always had to, carry out um, much like Din Djarin, where he's like, these are criminals. So like, fine, I will dispatch of these guys. I don't care. But when you start talking about children, when you start talking about families that are completely innocent, that's where I think you're going to start to see that older story going. Like he's going
Hmm.
to see more and more of that from, which is kind of like almost like a Marvel, uh, the Watcher type thing, where
Yeah.
because he's in the desert with the Tusken Raiders, where no one pays attention because there's huge monsters, and I don't know what Luke was saying was boring on Tatooine. There's huge monsters. Um, I think he gets to view all of this from afar, and I think that he's going to get a new perspective on it. That's what I think is going to be the next thing here. Is you're going to continue to see him getting a hatred for these criminals that prey on the weak.
Oh, I like these ideas. I can't wait. I can't wait to see the next episode next week.
Yeah, it's gonna be awesome, and I'm gonna be wrong about everything. So I think the
We
first
usually are.
15 minutes should just be you dunking on me, like, like, what were you talking about? Because none of that happened, and something very different happened. Sophie Thatcher showed up. She's definitely not Omega, you asshole. All right. Well, we're right at the hour mark. I know a lot of you have to go and bet on college football, and that starts in like 30 minutes. So I will end it here. But thanks so much, Josh, for joining. And I mean, like, we're gonna be back for all of these episodes. We're probably going to record on the weekends, give us a chance to watch it 4 or 5 times while you guys watch it maybe once. And then, who knows? I mean, looks like a big year for Star Wars shows, especially live action. So we might be back quite a bit. We might be bothering you, almost weekly. So we will talk to you guys soon. Josh, thanks again, and have a great New Year, everyone.
Yeah. Happy New Year.